This episode is brought to you by Lucky Goat Coffee Company.
Welcome to News and Brews with the Times. It's September 8th, 2025. In today's episode, we're talking with reporter Danny MacArthur about the big move officials just made that will slow high-density residential growth in Hall County, at least for now. Thanks for joining us, Danny.
Thanks for having me.
We'll also be talking about a middle-of-the-night text message that spiraled into death threats and felony charges against a teen girl.
Plus, a huge crowd showed up to a council meeting last week to oppose a gas station project. Did it make a difference in the vote? Grab your favorite brew and we'll spill the tea on the biggest stories in Hall County, Georgia. Don't forget, you can also find all of the stories we talk about this week at the link in our show notes and on GainesvilleTimes.com. I'm Shannon Casas.
And I'm Stacy Smith.
Danny, you showed up to a government meeting recently and then found out they were adding a pretty big topic to that night's agenda. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so I usually go to the Hall County Board of Commissioners meetings, and at the beginning of this one, they announced they were adding this item. And basically, it's a 6-month pause on rezoning applications that would allow for high-density housing.
So how do they define high-density housing?
Like apartments and townhouses. They're looking at units per acre.
Okay, can you break down for our listeners what the usual process is for a high-density development to happen in Hall?
Typically, a developer applies to rezone a piece of property, a lot of times from farmland or some less intense residential zoning to a higher density category. The application would go first before the Planning Commission, then the Board of Commissioners for final action, and public hearings are a part of that process too.
And they usually approve these?
They can approve or deny it. If approved, the developer usually has a ton of conditions to follow, like making sure road plans meet county standards.
So how many projects that are already in the works does this change affect?
So 2 projects have already been tabled that were supposed to come before the Planning Commission last week, and 2 more are withdrawn for next week's meeting. Any other pending projects are also now paused.
What were the 2 that were tabled last week?
One of those is a plan for 266 units on Friendship Road toward Brazelton. The other is an 80-home subdivision in North Hall, west of Mount Vernon Road.
Now, the apartments I understand, but a subdivision isn't high-density housing, is it?
That rezoning was from residential low density to planned residential development, which is a much more flexible zoning that does allow for higher density.
So what is the reasoning behind this pause to begin with?
So Hall County is experiencing rapid population growth, and they feel they need to make some changes to the code before any more applications move forward.
And how are residents reacting to that?
There's a vocal contingent concerned about the growth, but this vote wasn't actually on the agenda.
What? It wasn't on the agenda. How does that happen?
They added it at the beginning of the meeting. So they just, kind of read it out and said, we're adding this item 30. And yeah.
Well, that's fun.
And then how did the vote go?
It was 3-1. One commissioner was absent.
3-1. Who voted against it?
Billy Powell. And he had a long list of reasons, like recruiting businesses to the county. He thinks there should have been a public hearing. So this is what he said at the board meeting.
I'm totally against this because we have an intense effort to recruit businesses to Hall County. So we're going to say we want your business, but we don't want your people to live here. We all know there's a shortage of housing. And to me, it just does not give a good economic development message to companies that we are trying to recruit.
But so many people just don't even want that growth. Like the recruit businesses to Hall County that he's talking about.
Depends on the business, right? Because everybody wants Trader Joe's.
Yeah, but if you were to explain to them that the cost of attracting Trader Joe's to the area would bring in like 20 more apartment complexes to be their new neighbors, I think they would just forego having the Trader Joe's.
Depends on who you ask, I'm sure.
Yeah. And also the idea is you do want to recruit more businesses because you want higher wages. That is something they mentioned at the meeting. Like they do want more businesses in the county. So
they, as in like the commissioners or like the people responsible for the financial growth of the county, sure. But like the common everyday Hall Countyan probably doesn't.
I don't know. The cost of living is getting higher. You do need higher wages to counteract that.
But isn't the cost of living getting higher because of some of the growth that we've experienced? Property taxes increasing and yada, yada.
I think it's something that just feeds into itself.
When the value of your home goes up, then your property taxes go up. And then when you have more people living here, then you have more strain on public roads, schools, all of that. So, I mean, it's a big, complicated cycle, right?
Yeah.
So the value of your property going up is because it's more scarce, right?
I am not an economic expert.
I mean, I'm not either. I don't know.
I know that my taxes are higher, and I don't love that.
Me neither.
At the same time, when you talk about high-density housing, that's typically more affordable than low-density housing, right?
Yeah, I would imagine so.
I mean, obviously, like, we love the luxury apartments more than your affordable apartments as far as, some of the people in charge and trying to build wealth in the county. Yeah. But then if you've got businesses who need employees, where do they live?
Right.
I mean, my first job I drove to Athens for, and my second job I drove to Cleveland for, and my third job I drove to Gwinnett for. So, I mean, working where you live is a luxury to me, and it's something that comes as you progress through life.
Then you've got more strain on our roadways, so then our taxes have to pay for that.
Which they do.
Right, but I think a lot of people would probably argue that we're behind on our roads, and that's one reason for the pause, is it not?
Yeah, the infrastructure is definitely a huge part of it, even like strain to the sewer system.
Forsyth County, and even Dawson County, right, have all had a moratorium on this high-density housing. Why is Hall County so far behind in making that decision?
Good question.
Because I know that like some of the commissioners, like David Gibbs, I know I reference him a lot, but they ran on that like to try to slow growth. So it's now September of 2025, almost a whole year later. Like, why are they just now making that decision? If it was as easy as calling a vote.
I guess it's probably complicated. Just you have to balance different interests because like we're saying, we are growing. So you do want people to have somewhere to go. But at the same time, if the growing is happening like faster than we can manage it, then potentially we just need to just take a step back and then like figure out what we're doing before we're going to take on more of these applications.
So we've got a code that's supposed to manage what that growth looks like, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of why they want to pause as well, is to look at what that code lays out and how they want to like keep moving forward with growth.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think they last visited in November.
November of 2024.
That's when they adopted it.
So what changed between then and now?
Imagine just the growth that's happening.
Do you think they made some tweaks that like let the growth get out of hand and they're like, whoa, we need to revisit those changes?
I will say Jeff Gill covers growth and development for us, and he sent me like the agenda for next week's planning commission meeting. And it's been several years since I've been part of the newsroom, but I have definitely looked at those agendas in the past, and that one looks lengthy. There's a lot on the agenda. I don't know if that's like every time they meet, there's a ton to talk about.
Yeah, it is. It's even like at the Board of Commissioners meetings, that is by far the longest section of the agenda, is just going through different planning and zonings.
Yeah, so I don't know about like in the past year, but definitely like since COVID, you really saw things start to pick up a lot. And I guess that's like really happening in the residential space now.
Yes.
And kind of happening across, like we said, Forsyth, Dawson, Hall are all kind of like just north of that metro Atlanta area where kind of things are moving up from there. So metro Atlanta has been growing and growing, and that just kind of moves out into our region as well. And then you also have people who, some choose to live outside of that metro Atlanta feel, that pace, and they want something more like a Dawson County or even just Hall County.
Yeah.
A little bit slower pace, a little more room, different kind of community vibe.
Yeah. That is a lot of, I guess, the appeal for a lot of people. I mean, even I am like newer to the area, so I guess maybe I am part of the problem.
No, don't say that. We're glad to have you. It's just People need to stop coming.
Right. So that's the thing. You move in, and then, I mean, this is true for myself as well. Like, I grew up in Gwinnett County, and things moved so fast. I didn't personally want to live in a cookie cutter subdivision. I wanted something a little different. So I moved up this way, 15-ish years ago. And I specifically don't like those high density subdivisions. I just don't like the way they look and how cookie cutter it is. Apartments, I think, is a little bit different, but it depends on the project too. And I would guess most of the commissioners, they're not completely opposed to growth. It's like managing it, making it smart growth. And that's difficult to do when people have all kinds of different opinions on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even like when they do approve things, like if you ever look at like the list of conditions, they'll put all sorts of restrictions on what you can and can't do to still try to maintain like the character of the area.
Yeah. And then there's also the argument, if you're the landowner, like you should have some right to do what you want to with your property. But then, when you have to rezone it, that's going to be up to the board at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
This episode of News and Brews is fueled by Lucky Goat Coffee Company, Hall County's favorite way to wake up your luck. Start your morning with bold flavor and small batch brews that kickstart your day the right way. Find them in Flowery Branch or at luckygoatcoffee.com. A woman in Claremont got a strange text in the middle of the night, seemingly from a man who was asking if he could pull up to her house because he didn't have anywhere to stay, which turned into a flood of text threatening the family and police.
And then it turned out to be a teenage girl, right?
Right. An investigator testified last week that they were able to trace the spoofed account back to a 17-year-old from Dahlonega. They also said that the girl's grandmother told deputies that she had been obsessing over what police were doing that night.
What charges is she facing and how serious is this?
She's facing 8 felony counts of terroristic threats. A felony, of course, is a pretty serious thing and could bring 1 to 5 years in prison, but exactly how that stacks up will be at the discretion of the judge.
Do we know anything about why she was doing this? That's such a strange thing to do.
No, we really haven't heard anything like that so far. This was just her first hearing, and we'll be following it as it moves to Superior Court. So there's a lot more to know about how all this went down that night. I feel like you don't just randomly choose somebody to do this to. So maybe there's like some connection there, like they knew each other in some way. But that is all just me speculating. But we'll be sure to follow this story as we continue to report.
And there's a lot more to the story itself on our website, a lot more of the back and forth about like that, the drama of that night. So be sure to check out that story. There was a huge turnout at Flowery Branch's city council meeting last week.
I heard about it. They had to pull out extra chairs.
Yep. Reporter Jeff Gill had been covering news about this gas station proposed in front of the Four Seasons on Lanier subdivision, which is at McEver and Gaines Ferry. There's been a good amount of opposition.
Yeah, people have really not been happy about it. That's at a new roundabout where construction just started. Are people mad about the gas station, the roundabout, or both?
Mostly at the gas station, according to our reporter.
Well, I understand some of the safety concerns and whatnot that have come up anytime we've covered potential gas stations in an otherwise residential area. Like that situation just happened, I feel like, on Spout Springs not too long ago. But speaking from experience, the best thing about having a gas station close to your home is the convenience store. They don't call it that for nothing.
Yeah, I've lived in subdivisions near gas stations, and it hasn't personally been a problem for me, but they also haven't built a new one. So, I mean, people are concerned about what they're concerned about.
True. So how did the vote go?
Well, city planning staff was recommending denial because they say it conflicts with their plan for the area, which, for the nerds, that's the Comprehensive Plan's Future Land Use Map and Character Area. The vote was unanimously in opposition.
So they deaded it.
If that's how you want to put it.
If you know, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people showed up. Planning staff was recommending denial. Sometimes when residents show up and voice their opposition, it does make a difference.
To support the kind of journalism behind today's episode, subscribe to The Times, starting at just $7 a month. You'll find a link in the show notes along with all the stories we covered.
If you enjoyed today's episode, the best way to support us is by leaving a quick rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It makes a big difference. Got feedback or story ideas? Email us at podcastadmin@gainesvilletimes.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to share News and Brews with a friend. We'll be back next week.